This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin FREAKIN.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol, live. It's a freaking Friday. I've got the party lights on. It's the end of the week. We got a few different things going on tonight. CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, just wrapping up a couple of hours ago. Media winch. It reminds me, I need to hop on the Discord and open up the phone lines. 917-830-4359. If you'd like to give us a call. But also, we have currently going on the House of Representatives are supposed to pass the American Recovery Act tonight. Now, you might have been asking over the last couple of weeks, where's my fucking money? Well, this is your fucking money. This is the bill that has your $1,400 that should have been $2,000. But now this is actually the Rules Committee meeting. They have not even proceeded to the floor of the House. So there could be debate. I'm not exactly sure how long it could take place. And this end up passing sometime late into the evening. So I'm not going to commit to being here for this shit all night. Because it's going to be boring as fuck, and I can already tell you, I'm not high enough for this shit. It's Friday night, smoke them if you got them. But we have so much to talk about. The Attorney General of South Dakota was reading conspiracy theories about Joe Biden while he was driving, involved in a fatal crash. The Attorney General for the state of South Dakota. We've got all kinds of CPAC news, including, I'm going to tell you about the Japanese cult leader who will be appearing at CPAC. Also, Donald Trump will be speaking this Sunday around 3:40 Eastern Time. We will be covering Donald Trump's first public appearance since leaving office at CPAC on Sunday. Be here with us on the stream around 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Trump is supposed to speak around 3:40 Eastern Time. That is 2 o'clock Central Time, noon Pacific. I would love it if you would join me for that one. Now, I was supposed to have a reverend join me tonight. Everything was on. I thought we were doing this. I asked him about an hour before the show, hey, you ready to go? I had an ad made and everything. Never got a response back from him. But hey, we've got the House vote. Anyway, I didn't realize that was going to be happening tonight. But I thought it was a good night. I had some religious stories I was going to talk with him about. We cover CPAC on Monday, but instead we'll watch Don Jr. We'll watch Ted Cruz. So my apologies. If you do not enjoy watching right-wing dumb fucks make fools of themselves, this is not the episode of the Troll Patrol for you. My apologies. We're going to be really heavy on the right-wing nonsense. From Charlie Kirk to Ted Cruz to Madison Cawthorn. As we prepare for Donald Trump returning to the public spotlight. Also, we're going to talk about Governor Andrew Cuomo here in just a little bit. He just keeps getting in deeper and deeper shit. But first, the big story last night was the Biden administration dropping bombs on Syria. Bernie Sanders released a statement earlier today, and he don't seem too pleased about it. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders on Friday issued the following statement after U.S. forces carried out an airstrike on a site in Syria. I'm very concerned that last night's strike by U.S. forces in Syria puts our country on the path of continuing the forever war instead of ending it. This is the same path we've been on for almost 2 decades. For far too long, administrations of both parties have interpreted their authorities in an extremely expansive way to continue military interventions across the Middle East region and elsewhere. This must end. In 2019, Congress passed the first war powers resolution in history to end U.S. participation in the war in Yemen. Congress passed another such resolution in 2020 to prevent Trump from starting a war with Iran. These were important and historic steps by the Congress to reassert constitutional authority over the use of force, and we must continue to build on those efforts. While the president has a responsibility to defend the people of the United States, our Constitution is clear that it is the Congress, not the president, who has the authority to declare war. Thank you, Bernie fucking Sanders. Continuing to prove why he is the man and he should have been the man in the Oval Office. It is a shame. And you know, when we were in the thick of things with the whole insurrection and everything, I'm like, I'm kind of glad it's Biden because the institution, the military, they're all going to go with Biden. I didn't know that would have been the case had Bernie been president. Uh-oh. Here comes Smokey. What you doing, buddy? You gonna say hi to everybody? Hi, Smokey. But goddamn, now that we actually have a presidency in place and we're seeing the policy, holy fuck, I wish it had been Bernie. And it was like a year ago this week that the Nevada caucus happened. That we were riding high after 3 straight wins in the primary. This time last year, I couldn't have been more optimistic. But we were heading into that fateful Saturday where the powers that be, the deep state, the cabal, all coalesced around Joe Biden and made that a possibility. Blew my fucking mind because I was certain that Joe Biden was dead in the water. What did he finish in Iowa? 5th? Something similar in New Hampshire was 4th or 5th. I still can't fucking believe it. Now, as I talked about earlier, we are on the cusp of passage of the American Recovery Act. That is the $1.9 trillion bill that the House will be voting on sometime this evening, supposedly. A $1.9 trillion package aimed at helping the country rebuild from the pandemic seemed headed toward House passage Friday, even as Democrats search for a way to revive their derailed drive to boost the minimum wage. Now, if you are not aware, I think it happened around the time that we were doing the stream last night, the parliamentarian in the Senate gave their ruling that the reconciliation bill, which can only do with budgetary matters, it can only pass matters affected by the budget through reconciliation, that the minimum wage doesn't affect the budget and therefore cannot be included in the reconciliation bill. Now, Kamala Harris, in her role as president of the Senate, can overrule the parliamentarian on this. It doesn't look like the Biden administration is going to move to do that. We're going to hear from Nancy Pelosi on that issue here in just a second. A virtual party line House vote was expected on COVID-19 relief measure, which embodies President Joe Biden's push to flush cash to individuals, businesses, states, and cities. The White House issued a statement reinforcing its support for the new president's paramount initial goal. Republicans have lined up against the plan, calling it an overpriced and wasteful attempt to help Democratic allies like labor unions and Democratic-run states. Democratic allies like states. The bill is a partisan circus, quote unquote, designed to, quote, quickly notch some wins for the president's buddies. This according to Representative Jason Smith of Missouri. That's making the fight a showdown over which party voters will reward for approving added federal spending to combat coronavirus and revive the economy. The battle is also emerging as an early test of Biden's ability to hold together his party's fragile congressional majorities, just 10 votes in the House and an evenly divided 50-50 Senate. At the same time, Democrats were trying to figure out a way to respond to their jarring setback Thursday in the Senate. The chamber's nonpartisan parliamentarian said Senate rules required that a federal minimum wage increase would have to be dropped from the COVID-19 bill, leaving the proposal on life support. Hoping to revive the effort in some form, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is considering adding a provision to the Senate version of the COVID relief bill that would penalize large companies that don't pay workers at least $15 an hour. I like that. That's good. That was in line with ideas floated Thursday night by Senators Bernie Sanders, a chief sponsor of the $15 plan, and Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi also weighed in. Hear from Nancy Pelosi, what she had to say.
As a matter of a practice, I don't get involved in the rules of the United States Senate. But as a matter of values, I can just say we will not rest until we pass the $15 minimum wage. We have been engaged in the fight for 15 for a long time. This is legislation
so long that it's inadequate now.
Of women, so over 60% of the people making minimum wage are women. Many are moms. And it is so essential for us to do this. And whether it happens when we send this over there, we are sending it as a symbol of a difference it'll make in the lives of the American people. But not just a symbol, but as a solid proposal. If it doesn't prevail because of Senate rules, we will persist. But we will not stop until we very soon pass the $15 minimum wage. Any other comments that folks want to make?
So that was what Pelosi had to say. Now, it does look like the Senate Rules Committee has wrapped up. We could be going to... I'm sorry, I said the Senate Rules. The House Rules Committee. This is a House vote we are waiting on. The House Rules Committee has wrapped up. It looks like C-SPAN is playing something else now. They're actually playing the same clip of Nancy Pelosi that I was playing moments ago. So I assume that the Rules Committee has wrapped up their work, and we will have debate on the floor shortly. We're going to pick that up whenever that occurs. But for now, we are going to recap the goings-on at the Conservative Political Action Conference, which started off with organizers having to tell the audience a little unpleasantness. What is up, Morgan?
Does the Bill of Rights matter? The First Amendment, it matters. We conservatives believe in the rule of law because we know that when the law is enforced, our rights are protected. That's why we're doing such a big effort at this CPAC to talk about the Bill of Rights. But I also want to mention one thing, and I know this might sound like a little bit of a downer, but we also believe in property rights, and this is a private hotel, and we believe in the rule of law, so we need to comply with the laws of this county that we're in. But a private hotel, just like your house, gets to set its own rules. Carly, our CPAC director.
Well, as Dan mentioned, we are in a private facility, and we do want to be respectful of the ordinances that they have as their private property. So please, everyone, when you're in the ballroom, when you're seated, you should still be wearing a mask. So if everybody can go ahead, work on that. I know, it's not the most fun.
You have the right. You have the right to set their own rules in your own house.
Yeah, I feel sorry for them, but
Borrow in somebody else's house. So we need to comply with their rules. So thank you all for putting on your masks. I wear a mask when I'm in the halls, and we're going to comply with their rules.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good conference.
So met with boos when being told to wear a mask. Because of course they were. Are you ready for some Ted Cruz? Apparently not one of the keynote speakers as he took the stage early on today.
At a time where the hard left is resurgent. Two very simple things. Number one, we defend liberty. Look, are there tensions in our party? Sure, because we believe in diversity. We believe in individuality. Different people have different views. We aren't the Borg enforcing. Okay, I may have committed a cardinal sin mixing Star Wars and Star Trek. That next thing you know, you're going to cross the streams and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man's going to come. We were just too many terrible references there.
Get him off the stage.
We don't believe in uniformity, but I'll tell you what can unite conservatives and libertarians and those who value the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is a love.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. They don't value uniformity. Tell that to the 7 Republicans that voted in favor of impeachment, many of which got censored by their state parties. You dumb fuck. Every goddamn right-winger says the exact same thing. They'll come on my stream. We'll get a right-winger wander in here from me sharing out the link on Parler. And they're going to tell me they'll live in my mom's basement. What's the other things they say to me? God, I can't think of it. I always get the mom's basement. They make some comment about my cat. They all say the same exact shit. Ted Cruz out here saying, we don't value uniformity. You all vote as a block every single time. That's why it's impossible. That's why you guys are so powerful. You have outsized power because you always vote together and Democrats are always at each other's throats. So anyway, continue.
Of liberty.
The sideburns have grown back in. The sides of his hair, whatever the fuck.
And the left, they tell you who they are. Particularly in a global pandemic. As Rahm Emanuel said, you never want to waste a good crisis. And hoo boy, these guys. don't want to waste it. You see statists in California putting 37 tons of sand in a skate park because ain't nobody having fun while the socialists are in charge.
Does he really need
We
to
see
be
Bill de Blasio in New York
mouthing off about other states
sending people
after what
in
his
to
state
shut down
did?
parks and to throw young Orthodox Jewish kids out of the parks because God.
The gall of this man to get up on stage after what happened to his state and criticize the response of other states, the way they handle things. Seriously, Ted Cruz? Jesus. I wish right-wingers felt shame. Because we would have to keep having these conversations. They feel no fucking shame.
Forbid children have fun. We see leftists across the country shutting down churches. California, they've helpfully explained, you can go out and protest. You can scream and yell, abolish the police, and this virus, magically, no one will get infected. You can French kiss the guy next to you, yelling, abolish the police.
Or maybe they didn't French kiss the guy next to them. Maybe they all wore masks and handed out hand sanitizer and did their best to practice social distancing. Ted. And it was outside. And it was warm. Ted.
And no one will get infected.
I'll tell you who's gonna get infected. A whole bunch of people at CPAC.
And say amazing grace, everyone's gonna die.
I've open mouth kissed a couple of strangers in the last 12 months. But it was just the one person, like, you know, man's got needs. You gotta have a little fun time in there, even when a pandemic's going on. I remember the first girl I had over after it started. First woman, not girl. The first woman. I made her like fucking wash her hands, and I still had my like can of Lysol and shit. I was like, you fucking spray down all your belongings. Madison Cawthorn. By the way, I just recently learned this. This motherfucker didn't serve in the military. He does a damn good job of using military lingo to make you think that he served in the military. Apparently, he was getting ready to ship off, and he was involved in a car wreck. They tried their best to portray it, because I thought that he was a vet that was injured in service. That is absolutely how the Republican Party and his campaign tried to portray him. But that is not true. He also has several allegations against him and might be a Nazi. So, Madison Cawthorn, ladies and gentlemen.
My encouragement to all of us here is, as young conservatives, this new generation that's coming up, it's time to take responsibility. I need reinforcements in Washington, D.C. The Democrats...
See, we're what? Like 10 seconds, 13 seconds into this. I need reinforcements in Washington. He frames everything in this military lingo.
Opponents and adversaries on the other side are brutal and vicious. And they are trying to take away all of our rights, and they are playing for keeps. And so, my friends, it is time for us to no longer say, oh, well, we're just going to react to what the Democrats do. And when they try to do all of this major spending bills, when they try to spend $1.9 trillion, the conservative idea is just that we're going to come and give you our own version of the liberal ideas that just cost a little bit less. That's not what we are as conservatives. I'm going to
Well, that's not what's happening right now anyway. Like, it's the liberal version of, like, conservative ideas, just with a little more money attached to it. I wish we could actually get some truly progressive legislation passed. But anyway, oh, that's a great screenshot.
To tell you something, I'm not going to come up here and promise you free things. As a conservative, the conservatives in government, we believe that we are going to offer you something that is immeasurably more valuable, and that is your freedom. That is your freedom to go out and have the right to fail or to succeed. Your freedom to speak up or to sit down.
Now, this dude is positive that he is the future of the Conservative Party. I'm not so sure that he won't be just a flash in the pan. Okay, so Right Side Broadcasting is who was carrying this feed of this panel. I can't tell who is. I don't know if I even know any of these people. The freedom to freeze. Oh, you might not have been in here, Ninja, when we were playing Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz got up. He had the gall to get up on stage and criticize other states just a week after what happened in Texas. I couldn't. I absolutely can believe it, because right-wingers are fucking morons. Who else they got there? I'll tell you who else they got. We got a whole star-studded list over here that we're getting ready to watch of Charlie Kirk and Josh Hawley. And we're going to finish it off with the main event of the evening, the star of the show for Friday night, Donald Trump Jr. So, this is Right Side Broadcasting carrying this little panel. And you're going to notice something funky happen here.
3 different states, 42,000 votes, 45,000 votes, something like that, and we would have had an electoral college vote of 269 to 269.
There's a lot of sensitive topics that are being talked about right now. We want everyone to do your own research in regards to what they're talking about in this discussion right now, anything with the election or anything like that. So it's important.
Allow me to translate. What they're saying is bullshit, and we might get sued.
Broadcast all of this content for you with any disclaimer at all, but unfortunately here at Right Side Broadcasting, we must jump in here and put a small disclosure that we want you to do your own research, and it's very important that we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly, although we are broadcasting these speakers, we want to provide you with that. It does not mean that we necessarily believe or support
endorse the message
of every single speaker talking today. So make sure that you research everything. You talk to your healthcare physicians, whether it's regarding COVID or medical information, and if it's election related, just look it up. Look everything up, and we are just not endorsing any speakers for the event. Again, we are simply
just in case they mention Dominion. Now, we're also waiting. The House might be convening to vote, should be convening to vote on the $1.9 trillion American Recovery Act. We have C-SPAN up over on the big screen. This is a replay of earlier. Nancy Pelosi saying that they will fight to the death to make sure that the minimum wage increase to $15 an hour happens. But continuing with our wrap-up of CPAC, Charlie Kirk.
Big tech companies, if we are not serious about the threat that they pose to our livelihood, to spreading information...
First of all, that tie looks like it would be the background on like a 90s talk show or something. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, that was behind Arsenio Hall when he came out. Oop, 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 oop. Do your research. Do your research in that context meant we are giving a disclaimer that something's not right here so that we have lifted legal liability from ourselves. They don't actually want you to do your research. They don't want you to do your research because then you won't be watching right side fucking broadcasting. Unless you're like us that are just watching it for masochistic or amusement reasons. The Fresh Prince's Pants. That's a good one. It, like I want to say, it reminds me of like 90s Nickelodeon motif. It's Charlie Kirk, the Rugrat, as like the 90s Nickelodeon motif going on with his tie. Did somebody Photoshop his face? I never can tell. I can't tell if people made it smaller or not because it's that fucking small. Oh, wait a minute. We're watching video.
So spreading information, or in some ways not spreading information at all, then we will live in a country where every state is like California. Now, this is why Ron DeSantis is a phenomenal governor. Why? Because the states...
We need to clip that. Bookmark that shit because Ron DeSantis is probably going to be in jail within the decade. I hope it doesn't take that long. But as we saw in Michigan, it can take a decade to get justice. Flint still doesn't have clean water either.
The states need to rise up against these tech companies, as Ron DeSantis did. So for every Republican attorney general out there, sue these tech companies now for platform access, for monopolistic practices. We, as conservatives, have more power than I think we realize.
They canceled Young Pharaoh. And as Young Pharaoh pointed out, man, I should have got that video. I have a bad habit of, if I see something on the Majority Report, I won't play because I don't want to feel like I'm ripping them off. But they played the video of Young Pharaoh talking about how he was just saying the same things that the founder of CPAC said. Same fucking shit. He's like, I agree with you. But they called Young Pharaoh anti-Semitic. Could it be that they're just prejudiced against the black man? But yes, the irony, America uncanceled, and they canceled one of their own fucking speaker.
We have purchasing power, we have consumer power, and we must, in a variety of different ways, make sure our lawmakers do not take money from these corporations, push back against their pattern of actions, and be unafraid to entertain ideas to...
That's weird because he hates all the politicians that don't take corporate money.
Entrepreneurs, because the digital age is upon us. And if we do not have free speech or first freedoms, then we're all going to live in a country that is unrecognizable. And I believe if we do that and restore integrity in our elections, we're not just going to win a little, we're going to win big, and we're going to win for the next couple decades. Our best days are ahead. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
I can't believe I live in a country where Charlie Kirk actually gets to speak to an audience. He finally cut his hair, apparently. So, one of the headliners, shit. Hold on. One of the headliners of CPAC, and one of the people that I feel that we need to keep an eye on because he is trying to prime himself to take over the mantle of the Trump wing of the party. That's Josh Hawley.
Supposed to ask permission before you came here today. It's great to see you. It's great to be here among patriots. And I tell you what, can I just tell you, speaking of being canceled, the last 6 weeks...
We gotta hear him whine about his book deal that he lost. Speaking of being canceled.
Their corporate allies, the liberal media, have tried to cancel me, censor me, expel me, shut me down, stop me from representing the people of Missouri, stop me from representing you. And guess what? I'm here today. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not backing down. Not a chance. Not a chance. And neither are you, am I right? You're not going to back down. You're not going anywhere. I just want to say to those people who say to us, oh, you're the past. Your moment is past. It's over. It's Joe Biden's America now. I just want to say, we're not the past. We're the future. We represent the future of this country. We represent the next generation of this country. We represent what's coming next. And there is no way that we're going to back down. We're not going to back down to the woke mob. We're not going to back down to the cancel culture. We're not going to be told what we can say or do. But listen, we've got to be honest, and we got to face the challenges that are in front of us. And I tell you what, you know this or you wouldn't be here. You know that we are facing a crisis in our country. This is one of the great moments of crisis in American history. We're facing a fight for the republic itself, and we are facing an unprecedented alliance of radical liberals and the biggest, most powerful corporations in the history of the world.
If you are watching this stream, you are one of the radical liberals that he is talking about.
Twitter.
I guess he's talking about the fact that we're on Twitch.
Companies in American history, and they're allying with the radical left to try to impose their agenda on this country. They want to run this country, and if we don't do something, they are going to. And we've got to work.
No fucking right-winger knows what a radical leftist is. There's nobody on the left asking for the abolishment of private property. That would be a radical leftist. We're kind of centrist, but you have to call us radical leftists in order to make yourself not look so goddamn fucking fascist.
Word for that. It's called oligarchy. And that's what we're facing in America right now. And we've got a basic choice. We can have a republic where the people rule, or we can have an oligarchy where big tech and the liberals rule. And that is the choice. That is the challenge that we face today. It's a perilous moment. We have to stand up and take our stand on the Constitution of the United States.
So he was all about the oligarchy when it was like oil companies and shit.
The Declaration of Independence said that our inalienable rights to life and liberty come from God and not from government. Is that right? I mean, am I forgetting something?
Honestly.
And I also thought, last I checked, I thought that the Declaration said that our rights come from God, not from Google. Is that right? I mean, last I checked.
Oh, that was funny.
But that's the fight of our time, to make the rule.
If you're a right winger, but like they didn't really go for that line.
The sovereignty of the American people. You know what? That's always been the fight. That's the fight of liberty. That's been the fight of liberty since the beginning of human history. You've always got a small group of people who think they know best, and they ought to be in charge, and they ought to be able to tell us what to think and do. And today, that's the big
the Constitution is where our rights come from.
And what are we fighting for? It's the same thing.
It has to be enforced by a government.
We're fighting for the rule of the people. We're fighting to be able to have our own say. We're fighting to be able to run our own government.
I get like what he's referring to the Declaration, like the inalienable rights and yada yada yada.
The oligarchs want to take us. Just look at the last 2 months.
I mean, he knows that, but he knows the audience that he's talking to. Like this guy isn't dumb. That's the problem. Is like
shut them down. Heck, they censored the president of the United States. If they can censor him, they can censor any.
Trump was absolutely incompetent, and he surrounded himself with incompetent people. This guy isn't incompetent. So if he actually does position himself as taking the reins of the Trump part of the party, he could be a force to be reckoned with. They are live on the House floor. We will take them here in just a few minutes. We're going to finish watching Josh Hawley.
And I've got my own experience with this, unfortunately.
Correct.
You know, on January the 6th, I objected during the Electoral College certification. Maybe you heard about it.
Ninja, I would pay to see that fight. I would pay good money. You put that on pay-per-view. I want to see you versus God. And I will put my money on Ninja.
I stood up.
I didn't hear the line that got that.
Maybe you heard about it.
Oh.
I did.
Oh, he's talking about holding up the Electoral College certification.
Government in America, and that's what we're about. You know, you can see where the oligarchs want to take us. Just look at the last 2 months. The last 2 months, the big tech corporations have deplatformed conservatives.
Did I go back too far?
Shut them up, shut them out, shut them down. Heck, they censored the President of the United States. If they can censor him, they can censor any American citizen. And I've got my own experience with this, unfortunately. You know, on January the 6th, I objected during the Electoral College certification. Maybe you heard about it. I did.
So that's what got the roaring applause. I'm telling, he's trying to take over that mantle, but he's not standing on his own merits. They're not cheering for anything Josh Hawley is saying. They're cheering for him referencing the main event that's coming up on Sunday. That doesn't bode well for Hawley's chances.
I stood up.
This is the opening act referencing the headliner. That's what got the standing ovation.
I stood up. And I said, we ought to have a debate about election integrity. I said it is the right of the people to be heard, and my constituents in Missouri want to be heard on this issue. And so I did what, by the way... He's not just needing Trump support, he's wanting to take over that mantle. He wants to run for president in 2024 with his supporters. You know, they've objected to 11 different states.
That's what I'm saying. This is the scariest motherfucker in the Republican Party. If he is able to pull off what he is desperately trying to do, I'm not sure he can do it. But if he is able to pull that off,
The radical left said I should...
that's how fascism comes to the U.S.
From the United States Senate. Well, as I said a moment ago, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. I'm going to stand up for you. Because if we can't have free and open debate in this country, we're not going to have a country left. If we can't have free and open debate according to the laws in the United States Senate, what good is the United States Senate? Why do you send anybody to Washington at all? I thought it was an important stand to take. And for that, the left has come after me. They've tried to silence me. They canceled a book I was writing called The Tyranny of Big Tech. These people have no sense of irony.
How did the left cancel you? I think the book publisher decided they disavowed you. They didn't want anything to do with you.
It didn't work, but listen, that's just a slice of what they've done. A lot of people have had it a lot worse. I mean, they've made lists of Trump voters. You know this.
Our debate about the election was too open, if you ask me.
One outfit in Washington's keeping a list of everybody who ever worked for Donald Trump, including White House interns, to try to make sure they can never get another job in Washington again. I was struck by this story about...
Honestly, they shouldn't get another job. They're incompetent as shit. Did you see the way that presidency worked?
Consulting on how to get babies to sleep. Now listen, before you say...
It's not about their political affiliation. It's about the merits of the job that they did, sir.
My baby Abigail, my wife and I welcomed her on November the 9th, so she's just over 3 months old. Thank you. So we're really...
He's doing a good job of ingratiating himself to this crowd. He really did.
Who had an Instagram...
This is a really well-structured speech.
How to get their babies to sleep. It was great. She had like 4 million followers. What happened? She supported Donald Trump. So what did they do? They came after her. Tried to shut down her accounts, tried to run her out of business.
She probably said some racist or homophobic shit and rightfully got criticized.
At a church in this country, who has albums, worship albums he put out. He just got a call this morning from his corporate distributor, and they told him they're not going to distribute his next album. What was his sin? He supported Donald Trump in the election.
He said some homophobic shit.
And the radical left is doing. This is what they're doing, left, right, and center. And they're going to keep on doing.
It's always like, oh, well, he just supported Donald Trump. No, there's more in there. If you support Donald Trump, you're likely to have felt emboldened to say some shitty shit.
The answer is that the policy experts in Washington, D.C., and the elected officials there for decades on end have let them do it. They have given them the power. How did big tech get so big? Washington gave away the store. That's how they got so big. Washington subsidized Google and Facebook. Washington subsidized Twitter. And what are these companies?
Washington subsidizes all the big businesses.
What have they done to repay the favor? Oh, you know, they've shipped our jobs to China. They've paid our workers poverty wages. They have violated all of the principles that we hold dear. That's what they've done. That's what these companies, that's what they live to do. And the left is just fine with it. Because
well, they just got dial-up last year, so they're still kind of experimenting with it.
On the rest of us, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. So what are we going to do about it? I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? In this moment of crisis.
But don't let this motherfucker fool you. He is incredibly smart. I believe he's a Harvard graduate.
Our country needs us to stand up in the
If it's not Harvard, it's Prince, one of those.
By giant corporations and the liberal elite. We will not be told what to do by the.
That's another, like, fucking motherfucker went to Harvard up there deriding the elite. Come on, give me a break.
In this country and give the people America back. Give it back to them. Give it back to you.
The people sitting in that room, were the bougiest motherfuckers in the country.
The big tech corporations.
And Josh Hawley has the nerve to get up there and talk about the elite.
In the name of the rule of the people, for the good of the American people and our liberty, we need to break those corporations up and cut them down to size. You know what? The Republican Party, once upon...
I'm going to cut him off early because I do want to get over here to the House. Let's
for Title
see
10
what they got going
planning,
on.
which likely is going to go to Planned Parenthood. It has nothing to do with coronavirus relief. This is a $1.9 trillion partisan wish list that could
only the corporations he feels have been mean to him, not other corporations.
Without addressing the immediate needs of Americans.
And it's not even the corporations that have been mean to him. It's just people on Twitter have been mean to them.
This is not the time to push through.
so then that's what it takes to get a Republican to be against big business. Is to be a business that allows people to voice their opinions openly.
Were worked on by both Democrats and Republicans in the last calendar year.
Funny. It's
with previous relief packages, there remains a trillion
cancel culture against big tech companies.
Why so urgent to pass another $2 trillion now? It's reminiscent of our former colleague Rahm Emanuel.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
With that, I urge opposition to the rule. I reserve the balance of my time.
And that's all Dave over on Echoplex doing the IDW shit. That's all. It's everything they ever talk about. Is like how people were mean to them on Twitter. It's insane. Grown adults upset about people being mean to them on Twitter.
COVID-19 pandemic has cost the lives of over 500,000.
They had a whole conference on it and sold tickets to it. It's a scam, just like Mr. Potato Head. Holy shit. The Mr. Potato Head shit, it's all marketing. And people in the boardroom said, hey, if we change the name to Mr. Potato Head, they'll talk about that shit for 2 weeks on the news. God damn, and it worked. I hate capitalism, this late stage hellscape we live in.
Of all Americans, and we can accomplish all three of these priorities through passage of the American Rescue Plan. I want to touch on a few of the provisions included in in this package. First, our state and local governments, firefighters, police, transportation workers, healthcare providers.
The right-wingers. I don't give a shit about Mr. Potato Head.
Their communities by developing
Potatoes don't have a gender.
supporting vulnerable populations.
Or technically, they're both genders.
As quickly as possible. I'm glad
They're
this
potatoes.
$350 billion for state and local governments. All
Right-wingers are potatoes.
We also need to work quickly to extend expiring unemployment programs, which expire on March 14th. We saw what happened when Senator
So this is debate over the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill, the American Recovery Act.
They are owed. This legislation
Nancy Pelosi said it's going to pass tonight.
K through 12 schools as they work to return to in-person learning and help students catch up. It will also include $40 billion in rental and housing assistance. In the last month, Colorado is seeing a record amounts of requests for rental assistance.
We missed the beginning, so I'm not exactly sure how much time it's usually in.
Focused on delivering relief to all Americans.
It's an hour, 2 hours, or 4 hours of debate.
Provide this needed assistance as we vaccinate more people each day. America needs this. America wants this, and they're going to get it. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now I am pleased to recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, valuable member of the Rules Committee, Mr. Reschenthaler, for 2 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And unfortunately, it's going to take us longer to get through whatever amount of time they have set aside for debate because they're going in like 2-minute segments.
Only allocates 9% of the $1.9 trillion price tag to actually defeating COVID. So what are the Democrats spending the rest of the money on? Corrupt pet projects, of course, and also payoffs to progressive.
This guy looks like a Mr. Potato Head.
Just look at it. $100 million for the Silicon Valley Rail project near Speaker Pelosi's district. Totally coincidental, I'm sure. Taxpayer-funded healthcare subsidies for illegal immigrants. $50 million for Planned Parenthood. Hundreds of billions in bailouts to blue state governors who crushed
$50 million in a lot. Is Planned Parenthood doing some sort of
a minimum wage mandate that
distribution of tests or vaccination?
4 million American jobs. And the
That
list
would
goes
explain the money a lot allocated for them.
Aren't putting in this bill. They aren't reopening our schools. In fact, this bill spends 95% of the education funding after this school year. Democrats also aren't.
Well, it's also a recovery act.
In fact, this bill spends $471 billion on policies that
do check on the bill. I'm sure he's exaggerating some shit.
Targeting relief to where it is actually needed. In fact, this bill
taking shit out of context.
Who have not lost any income.
I'm sure there is pork in it. They had to give people shit in order to get them to vote for it. That's the way anything is. But this was also supposed to be a recovery act.
Unity and bipartisanship.
They wanted a very large bill that invested in infrastructure, that invested in local governments.
In the remaining funds that have already been allocated.
So, like,
instead,
rail, that doesn't surprise me because it's supposed to be a recovery act.
Bill filled with progressive.
There's a jobs portion to this bill. It's not just about
The gentleman
COVID.
The gentleman from Massachusetts.
It's about finishing off the job with COVID and also getting the economy moving again.
Biden is winning Republican support for his $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief plan, just not in Washington.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I'm happy to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, the distinguished chairman of the Committee on Veterans Affairs, Mr. Takano.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank Chairman McGovern for yielding. Madam Speaker, as of
Representative Takano has a awesome tie.
130 VHA employees have lost their lives to COVID-19. Over 226 veterans and 18,000 VA employees have tested positive. It is clear we must act now. This bill would provide funding to increase VA's claims and appeals processing to reduce the backlog caused by COVID-19. It would deliver critical funding for the Veterans Health Administration, bolster VA's supply chain modernization, and support state veterans' homes to upgrade and enhance their safety operations. It would also fund stronger oversight through VA's Office of Inspector General, secure assistance for unemployed veterans, and prohibit co-payments for medical care for veterans during the pandemic. This bill is critical to ensure the health system that veterans rely on can continue to meet their needs and serve as a backup.
I'm certainly
to
not high enough for
overwhelmed
this
healthcare
shit.
systems. While the return to handshakes, hugs, and visible smiles is on the horizon, the path to getting there requires this Congress to do quick and thorough work to ensure that we all get there together. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm now pleased to recognize the gentleman.
Makes total because it's a recovery act. It's supposed to invest.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the gentleman from Texas. Madam Speaker, over the past
Planned Parenthood, that doesn't surprise me.
$4 trillion to respond.
Yes, for somebody who doesn't like ties, I do compliment people on their ties an awful lot.
Following through on a campaign.
I hate wearing one
by
myself.
President Biden to spend another $2 trillion. Further assistance is appropriate.
I used to be a suit and tie guy back when I did news. Back when I was a real newsman.
Restaurants. But this bill fails
Not a
to
Twitch
recognize,
newsman.
Madam Speaker, the improving economic conditions, as well as the fact that more than $1 trillion from previous relief packages remains unspent. Just 9% of this bill goes towards combating the virus, and just 1% is directed.
Now, I kind of doubt the
The
9%.
apparent priorities of the Democrat leadership include
9% directly, I'm sure.
pension funds and an increase in the minimum wage, and $500 million for the arts and humanities. Madam Speaker, Congress has already provided 60.
Yeah, arts and humanities, which were hit hard.
Double the CDC's highest estimate of what it would take for our schools to open safely. We should be able to unite
I would love it if this bill contained some money for venues.
and ensure the efficient distribution of vaccines. I yield back. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Live event
The
venues.
gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm
Everything else has been able to open back up except live event
Chairman
venues.
of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Pallone.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, President Biden has set forth a national plan to crush the virus. With this bill, Congress is providing the president with the resources and tools to implement a national plan that was sorely lacking under President Trump. States competed against each other during the Trump administration for personal protection equipment, ventilators, and testing supplies. That now ends. This legislation provides $20 billion to speed up the distribution and administration of COVID-19 vaccine. It invests over $47 billion in the national testing strategy. It invests $7 billion to hire 100,000 new full-time public health workers to perform vital tasks like vaccine outreach and contact tracing. It invests more than $25 billion to address health disparities, and we also include assistance for struggling families to help keep their lights on, the heat working, and the water running. And we included $7.6 billion to expand internet.
Oh my God.
To help students and teachers.
Now that is a reach. But then again, what Republican argument isn't a reach?
The unprecedented challenges our nation is facing, and it deserves strong bipartisan support. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this point.
All right, I'm going to flip back here. Let's finish up our CPAC coverage, and then we will see the House vote through. Jim Acosta was outside of CPAC, and Jim Acosta got accosted. Because, of course, a CNN reporter would.
Covering Cuomo.
Conducting an interview.
When are you guys going to start covering Cuomo?
We do.
No, I'm asking you a serious question.
We do, but David,
no,
we
you
do
don't.
cover
No,
that.
you don't. No, you don't.
We do.
No, you don't. He killed 10,000 people, and he's accused of sexual assault.
Let me just finish
and you guys
this.
want to talk about Ted Cruz?
If you don't mind,
so when? No. When are you going to start covering
finish
Cuomo?
this interview.
I can do it this way, maybe. Just because he's rude, I'll be rude.
Sir,
so
let me just finish this interview, and then I'll talk to you, okay? If you don't mind.
What do you mean no?
I mean no.
Yeah, I'm
excuse me, I have an interview.
Yeah, what are you going to box me out? You're not tall enough. When are you going to start?
Oh, Caitlin Bennett was there.
When's CNN going to deal with Cuomo?
We are covering it. I don't
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not.
I thought I smelled poopy pants.
Okay, we agree to disagree.
No, we don't agree to disagree. You're not covering.
I have no clue if they've covered Cuomo or not, but we're going to cover Cuomo again.
What do you have to say about Cuomo?
I'm here to do a job right now. To talk to you.
You have plenty to say about Trump. Nothing to say about Cuomo?
I'm here to do a job.
What do you have to say about Cuomo? Nothing?
Cuomo is indeed the Democratic Trump.
What do you say about Andrew Cuomo? The Emperor of New York, and you have nothing to say.
I hope Andrew Cuomo rots in jail.
Let me see it.
That's just me, though. I think CNN did a segment on him. Like, I saw a segment about the whole Cuomo scandal on CNN. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that, Chris Cuomo doesn't talk about it. Might be a little bit uncomfortable of a subject for him. But I'm pretty sure that some of the other reporters have actually touched on the topic. Also taking place this week at C-SPAN, a Japanese cult that believes its leader is an alien from Venus is speaking at CPAC. Oh God, I'm going to fuck his name up. I'm sorry. Hiroku J. Aoba has a spot in the lineup just after Donald Trump Jr. Trump Jr. was earlier today. I did not see this guy's speech. So I assume he's like tomorrow or something, tomorrow morning. The lineup of the Conservative Political Action Conference this week includes political heavyweights like former President Donald Trump, Cancun-loving Senator Ted Cruz, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. It also includes the political head of a Japanese religious cult that promotes nationalism, xenophobia, and the belief that its leader is the reincarnation of an alien from Venus who created life on Earth millions of years ago. So it says on Friday afternoon, Jay Aoba, a prominent Japanese conservative, will address CPAC about the threat China poses to the U.S., taking a prime spot in the lineup just after Donald Trump. So, it was not up there. Donald Trump was about 5 o'clock Eastern Time. Oh, hold on. Oh no, I was going to go to, yeah, let's go to CPAC. It should have its own channel. No, let's try Twitter then. What was this guy's name? I would like to see what his speech was like. Here we go. What in the...
Conservative friends.
It looked like we got some kind of commercial for something before he spoke.
I'm very honored to be here again. そして、ここから日本語です。
So I will start in Japanese from here.
そして今回は日本から皆さんの星の仲間が30人ツアーで訪れています。
Today, my friends, Japanese friends, conservative, 30 Japanese friends came to this American CPAC from Japan, and they are here among everyone.
I can see why this guy's so well liked. He's very charismatic. Very charismatic. His speaker bio on the CPAC website notes that Aoba is the chairman of the Japanese Conservative Union, a right-wing political organization, and that he helped found CPAC Japan, which has been running for the last 4 years in Tokyo. What isn't mentioned is the central role Aoba plays in a Japanese cult called Happy Science, whose leader believes he is the Messiah and sells miracle cures for COVID-19. This is this religious cult figure from Japan who's speaking at CPAC. Yeah, the audio was shit. It was somebody's cell phone. I couldn't find, I didn't find The Hill or CPAC did not share videos of him out. Ayoba is no stranger to CPAC. In fact, 2021 marks the 10th anniversary of his first visit to the Republican Love Fest. Happy Science is a Japanese cult run by a man who claims to be the incarnation of multiple gods while pretending to channel the psychic spirits of anyone from Quetzalcoatl to Bashir al-Assad to Natalie Portman. While he has been a prominent member of the Happy Science cult from the beginning, Ayoba has been working over the past decade on building close ties with prominent U.S. conservative figures and creating Japan's Happiness Realization Party, the cult political wing that focuses on ultra-nationalism and increasing Japan's population by making child rearing easier for Japanese women. Wow! Welcome, Egoplex. I assume you were here with a raid. We are getting ready to watch Donald Trump Jr.'s speech from CPAC, and then we're going to head back to the House floor where they are currently debating the American Recovery Act. Oh, and plus I really, really, really want to get in this story about the South Carolina. Oh. That's cool. I'm not hurt by that. I'm playing. Star is awesome. I go watch her DJ every now and again. The South Dakota Attorney General is in some hot water. And I really want to do that story, but we also need to get to the House debating the coronavirus bill. But first, from just a few hours ago, Donald Trump Jr., the headline speaker at CPAC for Friday night.
How's it going, CPAC? Or I heard someone earlier phrase it a little bit better. TPAC. That's what it feels like, guys. Well, first and foremost,
Yes, the Trumps have taken over CPAC.
and it's great to actually be in a full room. Honestly, guys, what I see in Florida right now is exemplary of the Republican Party, right? This is a state like the party is that has open schools, open businesses, and open churches. What we've seen in some of the more left-leaning states is exactly the opposite. The only thing that they have open is open borders. And it doesn't work, guys. In the first 30 days of Joe Biden's presidency, all of the things that I said would come true in the book Liberal Privilege that I wrote last summer are happening. We listened to months of...
Had to get a plug for his book in there.
He's a moderate, don't worry. He's not going to end energy.
He's not a moderate. He's a right-winger.
Pipelines, which is partially correct. He's not going to end Russian pipelines. He's only going to end American pipelines. The Russian ones...
It wasn't an American pipeline. It was a Canadian pipeline.
They're going to cave to China. No, that was never going to happen. Of course it happened. You think that $1 billion investment in Hunter came for free? No, the Chinese have a great return on investment. But guys,
That's a very good point. I thought Trump built a wall. I don't know what $1 billion investment he's talking about.
bombing the Middle East again.
I don't know what he means about again. We never stopped.
Come on, the military-industrial 33 days. I guess they waited till the first month, so they couldn't say that was part of the first 30, but it was only shortly thereafter where we started bombing the Middle East.
I mean, broken clock.
Bombing the Middle East. Have you seen Liz Cheney's poll numbers? No, listen. The one thing I'll say for Liz Cheney is I'm sure she has a lot of bipartisan support.
Yes.
If there's one thing
Trump almost sparked World War III.
Bomb the Middle East. Everything else is a disaster. Everything else is just rhino policies, the kinds of policies that put the Republican Party...
His dad tried to bomb Iran. They talked him down from it.
No, seriously. Liz Cheney and her politics are only slightly less popular than her father is at a...
If you don't think Trump dropped bombs on the Middle East, maybe you should go ask some people in Yemen.
Fact checkers, please have at it.
How much coke did he do before he did this?
Fact check true. Right? Listen, like I said, Liz Cheney, she hates Donald Trump and his policies because her family has a long history of friendly fire. But she also hates them because she's tied to an establishment that has done nothing but fail.
Let's hope Don Jr. goes to jail too.
Heard the rhetoric from some of them over the last couple of weeks, and now you've seen that change.
I hope something really fun happens with Don Jr. too. Like he has some coked out rampage.
Is snatching defeat.
Runs his car off a cliff.
They've caved to every special interest. They've caved to corporate America. They've caved and bowed.
Gets indicted and hangs himself.
Their guts, hates their values, and hates their freedoms. Lincoln Project Liz, as I'd like to call her.
Ooh, that's good.
Of that failed movement. And if we want to go back to losing...
Is Guilfoyle writing his shit? Is that how he has so many good lines?
But I don't, and I don't think anyone in this room does either. So, you know what, guys? The first 30 days has been a disaster. The lies the media told you wouldn't happen are all happening. But hey, at least they have a diverse cabinet. Right? No, yeah. That's what we saw, right? What is the policy of the SBA? Well, first and foremost, we appointed a woman.
Well, I mean, Trump gave new meaning to the word White House.
There's competent women and there's incompetent.
Well, I mean, I guess he kind of can't give new meaning to the word White House.
We've seen that.
In this country.
But when you don't have policy to address the incompetence and think you can get away with it by just talking about diversity blindly, it's sort of a problem, isn't it?
When you're incompetent, you think you can get away with it by just talking about cancel culture.
The Muppets. Right? I mean, if there's things that you thought were sort of above cancellation, you would be wrong. There is nothing.
No one banned the Muppets. You can watch the Muppets right now in their entirety. There's like one episode you can't watch. Apparently, like some rights issues about music.
I mean, if Hasbro really wanted a gender-neutral Mr. Potato Head so badly,
Oh my
they should
God.
have a picture of CNN's Brian Sletler on the cover of their next potato.
Seriously, he's had some good lines. Who wrote these? He's not that witty.
We might as well get something out of the branding. But guys, we can talk about all of these things. We can talk about the liberal hypocrisy, liberal privilege. Just look
The liberal hypocrisy.
in 33 days, children in cages turned into migrant shelters for children. Now,
I agree, but like, you can't make that argument. What did your dad do?
other than the media's outlook, where is the outrage? about this? Where is the outrage about an asinine immigration policy that is encouraging?
No. If Dennis Miller was rotting for Junior, like it would be like weird references to 80s TV shows and 70s TV shows.
Real wage growth.
Orange man.
We see it time and time again. There's a double standard by which we live.
In 1600s France, yes.
People were informed of the actual
Just these weird esoteric statements.
by big tech and the mainstream media. We wouldn't be in these things. There was a poll that came out just this week that said 1 in 6 people would not have voted for Biden had they known.
Oh, he's a frothing conservative, absolutely.
Where
I love listening to Sam break down his appearances on Bill O'Reilly. He used to break down his appearances.
1 in 6, guys. 17% of the 80 million that voted for Joe Biden had they even heard of the basics of his corruption. We were all talking about it, guys. It wasn't anything new, but that also shouldn't surprise us. We've been talking about
The basics of Biden's corruption.
10 months. But no one was going to talk about it until they got their wishes. No one was going to address Democrat incompetence. We believe all women until they accuse a Democrat. Then, not so much. But guys, that's why we have to stay engaged. That's why we have to stay in the fight. That's why we can't allow
We believe all women until they accuse your girlfriend,
when you look at what's going
who has multiple sexual assault allegations against you. Or sexual harassment, not sexual assault.
Major corporations, Comcast, Amazon.
Yes, that is correct. Al Franken, I'm still pissed over that. Katie Hill for a consensual relationship.
Not radical parties. Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, just ban them. You don't see Republicans saying, let's talk about CNN as a place of disinformation. I mean, as a recipient of their ire for a couple of years, I can...
You don't see conservatives talking about CNN being a place for disinformation? Your dad coined the phrase fake fucking news. It was about CNN. Every single one of these speeches, it's been a crescendo of lies. I can understand not wanting your shit out in public. There's also, like, it's kind of weird because she was working for them, but the relationship was before they were... It's messy, and, like, I'm sure she was like, it's better to just resign and put it behind me.
I assure you...
I was on her side, though.
Russia collusion. We all know that now, but no one actually brings it up. Because they can get away with it.
I think the president that Al Franken set was terrible.
Big tech will silence you if you come out against it. They will crush you. They will call you racist and everything else. Just like, imagine, we'll bring back Cuomo, right? Imagine Ron DeSantis.
Bring back Cuomo.
Has done over the last couple of years.
Cuomo is going to be their whipping boy.
In jail.
He should be in jail. I'm all about it. Put Cuomo in jail. Put DeSantis in jail, too.
Verbal harassment swept under the rug. Hiding evidence from the DOJ swept under the rug. No problem. Give him an Emmy.
Ron DeSantis, too. Put Cuomo and Ron DeSantis. They both did the same shit.
Where's Fredo? He's so quiet these days. Why isn't Fredo talking about these things right now? Again, liberal brothers, no, we can't address that. Really? You can't address that, but you had no problem joking around with massive Q-tips.
Yes, please, Bill Gates, shut the fuck up.
That's what we're up against, folks. But together...
Bill Gates probably has no clue what happens when he speaks.
Vocal. We can't be put in the corner.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
And that's where you guys come in. So,
Who's he calling Fredo anyway?
I imagine
He's the Trump Fredo.
I imagine it will not
Is he calling Andrew Cuomo Fredo?
And I assure you that it will solidify Donald Trump and all of your feelings about the MAGA movement.
Okay.
The future of the Republican Party. So
They'll call you racist. Does a racism.
thank you for the love.
That's the Republican way. I mean, they're all fucking talking out of both sides of their asses. They'll talk about being pro-life, but then, they'll go out and be involved in a fatal accident. South Dakota AG may have been reading right-wing Biden conspiracies while killing man with his car. In newly released video, investigators can be seen telling Ravensborg that he'd accessed a right-wing conspiracy-heavy website a minute before killing a pedestrian with his car. South Dakota Attorney General Jason Ravensborg acknowledged during his interviews with police investigators last year that he was reading political articles, including a conspiracy theory-laden piece about Joe Biden, on his phone just before he struck and killed a pedestrian with his car. Ravensborg is currently facing 3 misdemeanor charges. Calls from Governor Kristi Noem to resign, and impeachment proceedings for killing 55-year-old Joseph Bouvier on the side of a highway last year. How in the fuck is he only facing 3 misdemeanor charges? How in the fuck? Only 3 misdemeanor charges. In videos released this week, interrogators can be seen informing the Attorney General last September that Bouvier's glasses were found inside his vehicle, revealing that the victim's face came through your windshield, contradicting Ravensborg's claims that he was unaware that he hit a man until the next day.
So, here's kind of the information that was put together on your phone and here's our times. So, outgoing call, 10:24. That's what time you made the 911 call. So, and that's all fine and dandy, But leading up to that, at 10:20, you unlocked your phone, signed into your Yahoo Mail account. Also, then signed out. At 10:20:49, you were on the Dakota Free Press site. These are all on your work phone. A minute later, you were on the Real Clear Politics website. And then about a minute later, this article was pulled up through Just the News, which could have been something that you were on this and it had a link to click to get you to this one regarding this. It's an article about Joe
I love
Biden.
that they're analyzing browsing behavior.
You were on that up to about,
during a police interview.
we're going to estimate probably a minute before the accident. You were on that. Do you remember any of these?
Well, I remember looking at it, but that's when I set my phone down prior to.
Prior to hitting the guy, I sat my phone down. I wasn't on my phone when I hit him.
We're looking at a minute to 2 minutes before you call 911. Right. So,
sleazy fucking bastards.
Being is that we know that from the time of impact, there was a time period that went by before you called 911. You had to realize what was going on, come to a stop, get your bearings back about you, get out, look at the damage a little bit, figure out what the hell's going on.
Sounds like it.
Where you are.
Sounds like he finished
Call
reading the
911.
Joe Biden
So
conspiracy
it's reasonable
article.
to say that there was a minute to 2 minutes that passed from impact to when you were actually on the phone with 911, right? That would be reasonable.
He's the attorney. He's
correct?
the attorney general. He feels invincible. Shit. So wild fucking story. All right, let's go back to the House floor.
Gentleman from Texas is
Debate continues on the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill, the American Recovery Act. We are live currently. Nancy Pelosi believes that the bill will pass sometime this
We do
evening.
need targeted relief for those.
Yes, fire him just based on that dumb shit.
Legislation.
He definitely needs to be disbarred.
Amendments to this nearly $2 trillion bill, and
No, I did not. I have no clue what's going on. Media Winch couldn't tell me what exactly that was. I saw the poster.
Redistribution of
She
wealth
sent it to me before you posted it.
had no financial impact whatsoever from COVID. It's also
Yeah, I'm not exactly. Do I need to get up for this? Or I'll just catch your guys' coverage of it.
predicts our economy will grow by 3.7% this year without any further.
That's a good question. Where is she going? That's what. Who is throwing the going away party? That's what we all want to know.
We can't afford to jeopardize our children's future with this socialist spending spree. I urge a no vote, and I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from the U.S. Virgin Islands, Ms. Plaskett.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. The time for bold and decisive action is now. This American Rescue Plan Act.
So yeah, this is the poster, but like I don't know what this
children safely to
means.
school, support vaccinations, put dollars in families' pockets, and put people back to work. The plan will mount a national vaccination program that sets up the community vaccination sites nationwide. In the Virgin
Sparkles used to do that shit to me. She would tell me shit as if like I already had the backstory, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
closure of businesses and lost revenues for government operations. Additionally, we have yet to
I really like Delegate Stacey Plaskett.
children. In the Virgin
He
Islands,
was one of the superstars of the impeachment proceedings.
overwhelmed and severely compromised due to facilities and the school year loss that they had from the 2017 hurricanes. Lastly, I'm proud to note provisions in this bill for the U.S. territories that I've been fighting for. This plan creates equality in the child tax credit and earned income tax credit. I urge my colleagues to please support this bill. And for my colleagues on the other side who have to give the divisive platitudes and non-support, you're
The gentlewoman's
welcome.
time has expired. Members are reminded to heed the gavel. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
He's
At
a
this time,
badass.
I recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Klein, for 1 minute.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We all want to beat this virus, but you can't beat a COVID pandemic with 91% pork barrel spending in the bill. Only 9% of the funding in this bill is going to COVID programs. $1,400 checks at what cost?
It's such a weird argument to get up here and continue to make because
Any additional relief?
it's called a Recovery Act. It's not just like the Fight COVID bill.
Temporary and tied to the pandemic. What is not targeted? $350 billion in state and local bailouts that reward states that continue.
It's called the American Recovery Act. I know C-SPAN has it
or $112 million
fonted as $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief.
$6 billion to bail out the multi-employer pension plans that were poorly managed in Democrat-run states before the pandemic even started. $50 million in taxpayer dollars for abortion on demand. This liberal wish list masquerading as COVID relief will cripple
This is
our
just
economy,
grandstanding, masquerading as debate.
and burden our children and grandchildren.
But then
with
again, that's what
strongly
this
oppose
political
this
theater
spending
is.
package, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Byer.
American Rescue Plan.
Madam Speaker, we have a choice tonight. Our American children are hungry.
It's the business solvent plan.
People file for unemployment every week. We can do our jobs, pass a national vaccination plan,
And throw some crumbs at the public plan.
support the unemployed, and protect American jobs. Or we can let them fend for themselves and slowly scratch their way back to health at great. I choose relief, recovery, and progress.
Oh, it says American Rescue Plan? Did I get the name wrong?
Minimum wage. 16 times as Congress has
I thought the name of it was the American Recovery Act.
There was a CBO score or a Chamber of Commerce or a conservative economist who talked about the shrinkage of low-wage jobs. But if we're persuaded by this job loss mirage, we would never raise the minimum wage. And I refuse to believe that this is American exceptionalism. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The
No way!
is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I'm pleased to recognize the gentleman from Lubbock.
What was it called?
Mr. Arrington, for 1 minute.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, there's an old country saying you can put all the perfume and lipstick you want on a pig, and it's still and it still stinks. H.R. 1319 is
that man looks like he's eating plenty of pork.
And it's disguised as COVID relief. This bill pays people more to be.
What is he talking about?
Go to work, slaps small businesses with job-killing wage mandates, gives a $350 billion windfall to states who were mismanaged and broke before COVID, hands a blank check to union bosses and greedy corporate executives who ran their pensions into the ground and stuck taxpayers with the tab. It rewards temper tantrums from teachers' unions by doling out billions of dollars to schools who refuse to open their doors to their students. This bill is chock full of bad policies, barriers to recovery, and bailouts galore. Madam Speaker, let's open the country up, get our kids back.
I mean, people need a bailout.
Back to work. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Texas, the distinguished chair of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, Ms. Johnson.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and strong support of this rule. When COVID-19 pandemic hit our shores a year ago,
It's my state.
researchers across the nation and across many fields of science and engineering jumped into action. The nation's STEM talent redirected brain power and resources to combating the pandemic. And thanks in large part to these efforts, we now have some positive news about our fight against COVID. However, important scientific work remains to be done in this effort. The Science Committee provisions included in this package direct funding through the National Science Foundation and the National Institute of Standards and Technology for vital research related to prevention.
They still want that fucking wall.
And recovery from COVID-19. I want to thank my colleagues around the House for their work on this important rescue package and urge its adoption. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I give myself such time.
Another representative from Texas.
Madam Speaker, if we defeat
Oh, this is the manager.
Republicans will amend the rule to strike the consideration of the Pelosi payoff bill and instead consider H.R. 1371, the Crush the Virus Act, introduced by Representative Tom Reed, which is attached and will provide over $160 billion to expand the administration of vaccines and provide direct relief for the coronavirus. Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of the amendment in the record along with extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question. Here to explain the amendment is Representative Gonzalez of Ohio. I yield him 3 minutes.
Without objection, and the gentleman is recognized.
So the Republicans are proposing an amendment.
Mr. Burgess, for your leadership. If we defeat the previous question, we will call up H.R. 1371, the Crush the Virus Act of 2021, introduced by my good friend, Mr. Tom Reed. This is legislation that is based off of the Problem Solvers Caucus endorsed framework for additional funding in order to defeat the virus by making further investments into testing, vaccine distribution, PPE, and utilizing the Defense Production Act. In other words, this is a targeted solution that can garner bipartisan support, unlike what we're doing today, and show the American people that we are committed to working together to defeat the virus. To date, while Congress may have struggled at times to deliver timely results, we have come together each time to pass needed legislation to help small businesses, hospitals, and Americans impacted by the virus. This is the way Congress is supposed to work. But instead, House Democrats have embarked upon a purely partisan approach, pushing aside Republican lawmakers like myself who actually want to find common ground. And for what? A nearly $2 trillion bill that is not targeted for the coronavirus, includes policies that will hurt job creation, and in the words of Larry Summers, who is no Republican, is a step into the unknown. What the American people need is for us to
no friend of ours either.
Step aside and identify targeted funding prior to spending $2 trillion of taxpayer dollars, only weeks after this body enacted another nearly $1 trillion, much of which has yet to be spent. This is why Problem Solvers Caucus came together earlier this year to identify in a bipartisan way
the Problem Solvers Caucus
that is needed to defeat the virus. The bipartisan agreement is the basis for the legislation we will bring up if we defeat the previous question here before us. My friend Tom Reed's bill, the Crush the Virus Act, will provide more than $160 billion in targeted aid, including $11.5 billion for manufacturing.
He is explaining a amendment.
$35 billion for the Provider Relief Fund and $5 billion for the Use of Defense Production Act. This proposal will speed up vaccine distribution and administration.
Gotta get 6 stories for men.
And supports our brave frontline healthcare workers. And I thank Mr. Reed for his leadership as co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus and for pushing this proposal.
Aww.
But let me make a final point and a broader appeal to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. The American people sent to Washington the slimmest House majority in quite some time and an evenly split Senate. The message
I still can't believe that.
Some broad mandate to jam down a bunch of progressive policies. It was that they want us to actually work together, to come together and solve the problem.
Well, that would require one side being amenable to working together.
The majority ignores it, the shorter their majority will be.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, happy
The Problem Solvers Caucus proposed a $600 billion bill, and it gave you zero. It would give you $0 checks, $0 checks.
I speak in strong support of the international provisions of the American.
That's a man with a nice suit on.
With a total of $10 billion. This is a relatively small yet critical investment in fighting COVID and its effects around the world. Pandemics do not respect international borders. To control this pandemic, we need to mitigate its global spread.
Was it Jenna and it's been years since I watched 30 Rock. Was it Jenna and what was Tracy Morgan's character's name? Fucking
governments develop and distribute vaccines.
Was it like Tracy Jordan or something like that?
That have been exacerbated by this pandemic. This provision would provide funding for the most immediate life-saving assistance, including shelter, food, clean water, basic medical care. Additionally, it provides...
I actually need to go back and I meant to rewatch 30 Rock because I never watched the last season. I'm like, well, I'll go back and rewatch them all, and then I'll watch the last season.
Even more need isn't created.
That was 6, 7, 8 years ago. Never got around to it. I really like 30 Rock, though. It's a really good show. I didn't know that I was a Tina Fey fan because that's my least favorite time of Saturday Night Live when she was the head writer. But turns out I just really don't like Lorne Michaels and his.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Gomez.
His bullshit because Tina Fey, like all her movies, crack me the fuck up.
We don't have any time to waste.
I love Kimmy Schmidt. I love 30 Rock.
10 people in LA County, home to my district, will have tested positive from COVID-19. And in another 5 minutes, someone in my county will die of COVID-19.
But yeah, that's not my favorite time period of SNL.
And frontline workers appreciate our thanks. Words alone are not enough.
But I'm pretty hit or miss on SNL.
Our appreciation needs to be in the form of benefits and assistance.
The last 15
Black and brown communities
or more years
disproportionately impacted by this pandemic aren't going to get through this crisis with platitudes. They need action. They need access to vaccines, money in their pockets to pay their bills, help getting their kids back in the classrooms, and support putting food on their table. That's why I'm
not exactly sure how long debate is going to last. If there's an hour debate, we will be coming up on it in about 20 or 30 minutes.
Rebuild our economy and give every American, regardless of their background or zip code, the opportunity to turn the page on this dark chapter of our country's history and come out stronger in the end. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I'll reserve.
The gentleman
Weekend update is always solid.
Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman.
Like we played the joke because I watched SNL this past week, and right-wingers got all upset by some joke Michael Che made. We played the joke. I laughed my ass off again on the stream. It was great.
Their health has been harmed. Their businesses have been shut down, and
I love the way Che and
waiting for their vaccines. They're not happy with our
Jost pick on each other.
And they're not pleased with the local response. That's why now, more than ever, we in Congress need to continue our response to COVID-19. In the past year, we passed 5 bipartisan bills that kept the economy afloat and the poverty rate flat. That's why on this night, with this pandemic raging this year, we must support this rule, which will put shots in arms.
There was nothing wrong with that joke. Apparently, some Jewish organization is going to be protesting outside of 30 Rock tomorrow night. I don't even think they have a show tomorrow night, do they?
Including my farm workers.
They've been back for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. It's time for them to take a week off.
Food security. So let's do our job tonight for our constituents and for.
I don't know what they're upset over. Like, you guys treat Palestinians like they aren't citizens, so fuck you. That's what the joke was. Wasn't anti-Semitic.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I want to recognize the critical work that was done by the Congressional Doctors Caucus on this effort. The thesis was that we're going to crush the coronavirus.
Interesting.
You'd think that you'd want to involve
we might still be talking about the amendment proposed.
Provider to come and serve in the people's house. Unfortunately, those amendments that were thoughtfully introduced were rejected at the Rules Committee. We had amendments such as allowing the FDA to use real-world evidence in their evaluation of the emergency use authorization that is currently pending. We're going to reduce the Medicaid payment error rate, which seemed like a good idea. Medicaid home and community-based services, substance use disorder treatment, and mental health services were to be expanded.
Oh, wow.
The public health workforce
dodged a bullet on that one, did you?
Was rejected. An amendment providing for.
I was considering moving to Texas.
We know we've got a problem with increased people coming across the southern
right
border.
Before the coronavirus hit.
President Biden has indicated that he is welcoming that, but as a consequence, we need to be certain that we are protecting Americans from the introduction of the coronavirus. This was a measure to allow for increased testing on the southern border, but we
oh, your rep is worse. I'm
high
sorry.
Protections. You've heard many people talk about that. That was rejected at the Rules Committee, and
I am a concert head. I was highly considering moving to Austin
to allow for the standardized testing to go on in classrooms.
It seems like a city that would be right up my alley.
Using it to reduce payments to schools that don't measure.
But coronavirus happened, so I re-upped my lease because I'm like,
far behind.
Who knows what's going to happen? I'll stay here for another year or so.
Introduced by the GOP Doctors Caucus, unfortunately, all rejected. You'd think if you wanted to crush the.
So he's up here complaining about the fact that their amendments were rejected.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
They were thoughtful amendments.
To the gentlewoman from New York, the distinguished chair of the Committee on Oversight and Reform, Ms. Maloney.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you.
I smoke a lot of weed. I mean, I feel like people smoke weed in Texas. That seems like a thing.
Responders, teachers, transit workers, sanitation workers, and
Isn't medical marijuana legal there?
Already laid off from state and local governments across this nation. We must act before more people lose their jobs and before more life-saving programs are cut.
Thank you. Oh, there's no medical marijuana? I thought there was.
Included in this package.
Damn! Texas, get your shit together.
For the first time,
you are too large of a state.
It can be used to administer vaccines, increase.
As I understand it, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, all happening cities.
New York City, which last month projected a $10.5 billion loss in expected tax revenue, this money would mean it can continue to provide vaccines and food assistance and reopen schools safely. Hundreds of local officials told us the relief in this bill will mean
Okay, I thought there was something about it.
Time has
and
expired.
cannot
Houston, is 2 happening?
taken together.
The
This will be
gentlewoman's
the
time has
light
expired.
this country needs at this dark hour. Thank you, President Biden. Everyone should vote yes.
Thank you, fuck you, bye.
The chair would again.
Everyone should vote for this.
Keep the gavel. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I inquire the gentleman from Massachusetts?
Houston is to Houston.
If that is the case, I am prepared to close.
That's the problem with strict laws.
Madam Speaker, in closing, doesn't look like this bill is
Black market is not good for us, the consumer. Okay, so I don't know if he is closing the actual debate from the Republican side or if this is just closing out the amendment.
But what I'm not willing to talk about is a gilded underground railway under the Silicon Valley. This is one of the most expensive bills in the history of the People's House. And it
That's true.
prioritize the immediate needs of the American people. Rather than work for the American people, Democrats are working for their own future 2 years from now. I think that is
Well, now the Democrats are indeed. That's talking about that railway.
President Biden has
There's some rail in Nancy Pelosi's district.
vaccines he's
But
making
it was a job that already, I think Ninja looked it up for us.
to get developed and into
It was a
production.
job that was already ongoing, and it's just like to provide more funding for it.
I'm going to urge a no vote on the previous question so we can offer the amendment. I'm going to urge a no vote on the rule, no on the underlying measures, and I'll yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, we are in the midst of a pandemic, the likes of which we haven't seen in 100 years. It is catastrophic in every way imaginable. And to hear some of my Republican friends try to nickel and dime our response, they should talk to an economist. If they did, they would discover what will happen if we don't pass this package now. We could end up with 4 million fewer jobs this year. That's according to Moody's. It will take another 4 years of suffering before the GDP returns to its pre-pandemic levels. That's according to the nonpartisan CBO. Our Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, has said the smartest thing we can do is to act big.
And it's
will far outweigh the cost.
very plausible that we're going to come up against another bubble right about the time that we are recovering from the pandemic.
The fiscal accelerator. Now let's be clear what we cannot afford.
There's another housing bubble on the horizon, the student loan bubble for sure.
Or another moment of inaction. This plan is what our economy needs.
The pandemic probably contributed to more of a credit card bubble.
So let's pass this rule and the underlying legislation, and let's let the Senate do its
I could see that as well.
to the president's desk.
Wall Street is in for a
This
reckoning.
historic crisis deserves a historic
That shit with GameStop jumping back up again this week.
on us. You know, it is.
There's more to that story. The GameStop story is more significant than what we know right now.
Experience. Barely a word of empathy or compassion for those who are suffering or for those who are struggling.
There is far too much speculation going on with tech companies.
We have heard are distortions. What we have heard is divisive talk. My friends talk about bailouts. This is not a bailout. It is a rescue package. My friends are out of touch with the American people. People are struggling. People
Now that's true.
are trying to figure out how they're going to put food on the table to feed their families. And
Republicans
here on
are
the House
insanely
floor,
out of touch.
What we hear is indifference. What we hear is distraction. So look, the good news is this. We're going to pass this bill today. This is a big deal. And we're going to send it over to the United States Senate, and we have a Senate that is not going to put this in the trash can.
So we are indeed closing in on the
it,
vote.
And then we're going to send it to the president. And the good news to the American people is help is on the way. We promised you that we would step up to the plate.
About goddamn time.
Appropriately to this crisis, and that is
I remember somebody saying $2,000 checks out the door.
to support this rule, to support this package. I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question on the resolution.
The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Object.
They're going to request a...
We clearly won that.
Yep.
Pursuant to Section 3 of House Resolution 8, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.
God damn, Republicans are assholes. We clearly had that because we yelled louder.
On ending the rules debate for the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill. The package includes $1,400 checks for most Americans, as well as an extension of unemployment benefits, additional...
Oh, God. This was the debate on rules? This was the debate on... This wasn't even the actual debate.
$50 billion for states and local governments, and new aid for restaurants, airlines, transit, and Amtrak. It also includes funding for virus testing, tracing, and distribution.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The plan also provides...
Right-wingers are indeed morons.
$15 an hour, which has already been ruled out of order under the...
What's going on? You enjoy myself. You want to argue? 917-830-4359. Hop in the Discord. The House voting on, I don't even know. Vote on in debate on the rules. So yeah, they were debating on the rules. So God, there's going to be like another 2 hours of debate after this. Yeah, we love hating on the right wingers in here. We have a lot of fun doing it. You can also visit the FREAKIN shop. You can hate on the right wingers by picking up one of these sweet right wingers or morons shirts. My own original design. Aw, that's awesome. Thank you for supporting a good cause. I greatly appreciate it. Alright, that's going to do it for me. I'm not going to stick around for this stuff. It's a Friday night. I got better things to do. Echoplex isn't back on yet, are they? I think they've got another hour until they start back up. Nuts. I'm going to send you guys over to Ravana. I will drop by and check out Down Ballot later, just as everybody else should. Go follow my friends over at Echoplex. So if you're on the Twitch, I'm going to send you over to Ravana. I'll hang out with you for a little bit. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We will be back Sunday afternoon with the return of Donald Trump.